Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the news that Joe Biden has actually given his son Hunter Biden a full presidential pardon for the criminal charges that he was facing. Hunter Biden is of course a name that will be known to many. He has the infamous Hunter Biden laptop and many stories circulating around him. I think it's fair to say that if a person is more Democratic leaning or more Republican leaning or independent or whatever, I think everybody will acknowledge that Hunter Biden is not exactly, an example human being, and he seems to be a deeply flawed individual who has done some things which aren't exactly very good. Let's just put it that way. Now, some of the things that he has done would be acquiring a gun, a firearm, and lying about whether or not he had a drug problem and was using drugs when he did that, which is actually a felony in the United States, and that was one of the crimes that he was being prosecuted for. And in addition to that, he also had a charge for tax evasion, which he had pled guilty to. So these are serious federal crimes, basically, and he'd been convicted by a jury in at least one of the cases. So Hunter Biden basically was facing jail time as well as fines probably for his conduct, until, of course, his daddy, Joe Biden, the outgoing president of the United States, who, after the defeat of Kamala Harris in the November election, is a lame duck president. He was always going to be a lame duck president anyway because he didn't even stand, but he's a lame duck president and he has issued a pardon here. Now, it's not unusual for presidents to issue pardons as they exit office. It's definitely not unheard of, but the striking thing about this one is that it's to a family member, and I cannot find any other example of a person who issued a pardon, a presidential pardon, to a member of their immediate family. The only comparable case that I could find would be that of Donald Trump, who actually pardoned his father-in-law, but that person had already served his sentence, and therefore it's not really comparable to the Hunter Biden case because Hunter hasn't even gone anywhere near a prison yet. The President of the US can only pardon people who are accused of federal crimes in federal courts and not state crimes. So, we've heard probably that Donald Trump has been accused of several state crimes, particularly in the state of New York. There's nothing that can be done about that. But for federal crimes, the President does have basically unbridled power to pardon people. I think that there are really two views of this. There are maybe the apologists for Joe Biden who will say that he's a devoted father and cares so much about his family, and he felt that the charges against his son Hunter Biden were somehow politically motivated. And in fairness, there have been several former federal prosecutors who've come out and said that, at least on the weapons charge anyway, that it's very unlikely that this case would ever have been prosecuted if Hunter Biden hadn't been involved. If it wasn't one of these kind of celebrity cases, then the chances of a prosecution were much, much lower. And there may be some truth to that. But to me, it still smacks of nepotism and just the wrong way of doing things. I think another motivation for Joe Biden maybe would be that his son would still be in process during the transition of power to the Trump administration, and he probably felt that he was leaving Hunter Biden at the mercy of Donald Trump's Justice Department when it came to things like sentencing recommendations and stuff like that. So he maybe wanted to avoid that. I think the other view on this, and I think it's the more legitimate view, is that Joe Biden just basically committed a very cynical act in pardoning his son. It's something which he's committed multiple times, including very, very recently, to not doing. He's supposed to be someone who's committed to the Constitution and the institutions of the United States. He describes himself as an institutionalist. And he has said that it's inappropriate for a president to intervene in cases like this, especially when it involves a member of the president's immediate family, and use the pardoning power in this way. And yet, this is exactly what Joe Biden ultimately chose to do. He succumbed to maybe his emotions and his feelings as a father, which I'm sure to some extent most people can understand. But it's still very, very wrong, and I think it sets a terrible precedent for the future, in terms of what presidents are expected to do. It really, really lowers the bar. I mean, this is a case where Joe Biden said he will respect the jury verdict in the case, and yet when the jury gave their verdict and found his son guilty and his son was facing prison time, he decided to issue a pardon and just basically throw it out. To me, that's completely wrong and completely appalling. Now, of course, Trump is very, very critical and has been critical of Biden's decision, and I can understand that. But of course, he is not exactly completely clean in this respect either. In the dying days of his first presidency, he issued a swath of pardons to very questionable political allies who had done things which weren't particularly savoury. People like Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, and Roger Stone all received presidential pardons from Trump. So, his hands aren't exactly clean when it comes to this. But, the thing that I have with Joe Biden, the problem that I have is, first of all, I don't think that he is completely compos mentis. I don't think that he's all there. I think he's being manipulated perhaps by the people around him to do this. And secondly, he's overtly come out and said, I would not do this is wrong. And then he's just immediately reversed that position and done exactly the opposite and done the wrong thing that he said he would not do and had previously condemned for all the right reasons. To me, it's quite incomprehensible, and it sets a very, very bad precedent because, we've got Donald Trump coming into office, who is not exactly renowned for his respect for institutions and things like that. And if he can point to a president of Joe Biden and say, well, this guy did that, so of course I can do the same thing, then it just sets a very bad example. And I think it's something which will come back to haunt people. I think it's something which we will remember in the future that a Democratic president has done, because I'm pretty confident that we'll see Donald Trump issue some very questionable pardons during his presidency, and he'll be able to cite this example and basically say, well, the other side does it too. So any kind of moral high ground that the Democratic Party or the Biden White House previously thought they may have had, I think that decisions like this have basically just torpedoed it, and it's now, well underwater with this kind of move. It is just not the kind of thing that normal people can accept or respect. Alright, well that'll do it for this video. Please let me know your opinions on Biden's decision to pardon his son, whether you think it's justified or whether you think it's wrong. I would be intrigued to know. I hope people found the video entertaining and useful, and I will see you soon in the next one.